Hello everyone, I am Ellen, a prominent member of the Smash modding community according to GameRant, and today I will be showing you how to create costume mods for Smash Ultimate. Some things that I've made before are this mod, and this mod, and these mods, and, well, okay, a lot of mods. I have a decent amount of knowledge, so hopefully things will go well. Let's begin. So before we get started, I will assume that you have at least some Blender and Photoshop or GIMP knowledge, some reading comprehension, and a modded Switch to get the game files, as I won't be showing you how to rip the game itself to get the data.arc file. To start creating these mods, we will first need a few things. An idea, basically something to make. In this tutorial, our test subject shall be Little Mac, and we will just be giving him an outfit from Fortnite, because why not, shouldn't be too hard. Next, you're going to need a computer, preferably on Windows. Some applications you will need are Blender, a photo editing software, a Switch toolbox, and SSBH editor. In my case, I will also need Fortnite Porter, which is just a way to get Fortnite models and textures, but you can also get models from DeviantArt and Models Resource. Something required for this is Carlos's Smash Ultimate Blender plugin, which will create this process much easier. I will not be showing you how to install this plugin because you could just search it up on Google. For which Blender version you need, I would recommend 4.0, but for this tutorial I'll be using 3.3 because the Fortnite Porter plugin is currently not updated for 4.0. Finally, you will need a render setup, which can be found in the render setup drive. I will leave as much as I can in the description. Let the lesson begin. To extract Smash's game file, the data.arc, I will be using an application called CrossArc. However, you can also use Arc Explorer if you want to. Basically, you will find the fighter models and files in, well, the fighter folder. Some characters will have a codename or Japanese name, which can be seen here on the screen. The fighter we will be looking for is Little Mac, so he doesn't really have a codename for it. Basically, you want to extract the files in this directory: the root, fighter, Little Mac, model, body, COO to get Little Mac's default model and textures. And I usually like to get an animation file to test that model with animations to check the rigging, but that's just a preference. I also like to export the textures before importing to Blender, so you can just do that by opening up Switch Toolbox and extracting it from there. But with Blender 4.0, I think there's already an option in the Smash plugin, so you don't have to do that. Okay, now you can open Blender. Usually when you open it, you could see that there's a cube, camera, and light. You could just delete those. Once your workspace is cleared, you can start importing your model. On the right side of your workspace, you should see some tabs if you press N. One of them should be named Ultimate. Once you see that tab, click on Model Imported, and then select the only button that is there. After that, find where your Smash files are, and open up to the slot folder, and choose that one. Once you get there, you can import your model. You need to give it a few seconds. Once the model is in Blender, I hit all the expressions so that the model looks nicer. This is optional. Now I will import the Fortnite model using Fortnite porting. This might take a bit, so I'll speed up the video a little bit. And just like that, both models are in Blender. Now on to step 2. So the first thing I did was separate parts of the Creed model because it is currently combined into one mesh. You can just go to edit mode on Blender and separate them by pressing P and doing it by material. I also removed the coat because I didn't need it for this mod. Once that is all done, select the Fortnite armature and go into pose mode. In there, you will start editing it as closely to low max model as much as you can for scaling, rotating, and moving. Just try not to disform it too much. The simplest way to do this is just scaling the model, moving the hip to where the Smash model's hip is, and rotating the joints as closely to match Little Mac's arms and legs, and head. Sometimes requiring to scale and move some parts to fit the proportions of Little Mac. There's not much else to explain. A neat tip that is specifically for the hands is that I deleted one of them and separated the other from the main body to mirror it, so that I don't have to replicate the rotation on one side. I did the same thing with the shoes later on. I wonder how long this time lapse is going to be. Once you finish posing the model to your liking, edit any parts of the vanilla mesh that you want to keep and remove some unneeded parts, such as little Max arms. In this case, I would also duplicate the model with Shift D plus D, just in case if I need it later on. I would also use sculpt mode for any minor details to make it look a little more clean. And just like that, step 2 is complete. Next up, we are weighing the model. Basically, what you want to do is get rid of any shape keys on the model because you don't really need them for anything in this case. Then apply the armature modifier and delete all vertex groups. Do this for all meshes that you want for your mod. For the mirror meshes, apply the armature modifier and then the mirror modifier. Once you finish doing that, clear the parent of the meshes using Alt-P. Then select the Smash armature and then use Ctrl-P to set the parent, and you would want to set it to empty groups. Another preference I did was combining Little Max body and clothes meshes so that I could transfer weights easier. To transfer the weights, you will be using the data transfer modifier and just copy what I did. And make sure to apply the modifier afterwards. Also, for some reason, I decided to apply the new armature modifier for the gloves and shoes. Yeah, don't do that. That was my mistake. Once transferring the weights, You can test up by going into pose mode on the Smash armature and rotating the bones and seeing if anything needs adjustments. If there's anything you want to change, you can just select the specific mesh and go into edit mode and remove or edit any group, vertex group, or weight it currently has. Just do that for anything you see relevant. Once everything is rigged and weighted, I separated the stomach from the rest of the body so that I could apply a skin material to it later. It's mostly just tedious work. Once separated, I re-UV'd the rest of the body so that no skin is shown on it, just another preference. Now that the model is rigged and prepped, select the meshes that you are adding and go back to the Ultimate tab, and then go to the Attribute Renamer and click on the only button that's there. Once you do that, you need to go to the weight paint option and limit your weights to 4, as seen on screen. Finally, I changed the materials of the mesh to one of Little Mac's original materials so that I could export it without any problems. Before exporting, check the weights one more time to see if there's any unweighted areas after limiting the total. If there are, just go back into edit mode and assign a vertex group to the specific vertices. Simple as that. You can also delete any unused meshes. I forgot to show this until later on. Finally, you can export this by going onto the tab, selecting the Model Exporter tab, and select the model.nusktb. I don't know how to pronounce that. Just follow the screen again. After you do that, you can export your files. In this case, you only need the model.num, model.numshed, and model.numsec. I don't really know how to pronounce those either. I also like to save them in a separate folder. Now if everything is done correctly, those files should appear in this folder. Now on to step 4. Open up your photo editing software. In this tutorial, I will be using GIMP. Find your imported model's textures and open them. Edit them as you please. I changed the skin to closely match Little Max and changed the red to green. This shouldn't be too difficult to understand, or at least I hope so. For PRM maps, you're going to need a metal map, a roughness map, an AL map, and a specular map. A metal map should mostly consist of solid black, white, and gray colors. A roughness map is more detailed and also varies in the grayscale colors. Where the darker it is, the more shiny and glossy it will become. The AL map is mostly white, with shadows anywhere that is needed. A specular map is mostly just gray. In terms of Fortnite's textures, I'll leave this chart out. Note that cel-shaded characters are a bit different. Basically, with these Fortnite textures, you'll want to find the textures ending in _M and _S, and decompose them to get the color channels as separate layers. Remember that each game works differently, and that they might not all have the textures that you need, where you will have to figure it out on your own. Once you get all your layers in order, you can compose them to get one PRM texture. Now, since the skin is also in this texture, you will need to match the current area of skin to the same values of Little Max skin PRM texture. Once you have all that done, you can export the PRM texture. Also for GIMP users, I would recommend turning on the save color values from transparent pixels option when exporting. For normal maps, you will also need to decompose it. Another Fortnite specific thing is to invert the green channel. I don't know the reasoning behind it. I assume it's a game engine thing, I think. Anyway, the normal map usually includes a blend map in the blue channel, which makes the ink transition look better and smooth. I just googled blend map on Google and just chose the first result or something. You can also make your own blend map with Nano's tutorial on Game Banana. Anyway, after you get in your blend map, you can compose it and export the texture. Another thing I would recommend is to resize your textures for optimization. That's basically it for textures. Now you can open up Switch Toolbox and open up the textures you want to replace, and then replace each texture with the corresponding new texture. Another thing that I specifically did for this mod is reuse Little Mac's sweater texture as an emission texture, which mostly because the sweater is being unused. You can just save textures with Ctrl S. You did it, now on to step 5. Open SSBH editor now and open the folder where your files are located. I also hid the expression so it looks nicer. As seen on the screen, at the moment, I forgot to delete the extra meshes, so I just decided to do that now. Now for the materials. All you need to do is open up the model.nap and select the specific material you want to edit and go from there. In this case, I applied the emission material to the default material that the mesh currently has. For the skin, I duplicated the material and applied the skin material to it. Once I did that, I opened the model.num and changed what material the mesh was assigned to. Make sure to save both files before exiting the editor. Now, before moving on, test an animation to see if you want to change anything. If not, move on to step 6. This text is a little long to read, so I'm just gonna pass it off to some text-to-speech thing.
First, you want to find a render setup. Now, depending on the fighter, there might not be one available, where you would have to make your own or wait for someone to make one. I probably should have recorded myself making Little Mac's setup, but it's too late now. Anyway, download the setup and open it up in Blender. I copied my modded folder and exported the textures so that I can import it into Blender. Again, not required for Blender 4.0. Anyway, import your mod into the setup blend and select the armature from the setup file. Go into pose mode. Select all bones by pressing A and copy them with Ctrl+C. Go back into object mode and select the imported armature. Go into pose mode, select all bones by pressing A and paste with Ctrl+V. Now, if the setup is not updated, it might look like a mess. I will leave a link down to a video on how to fix it by Messy Product. Since Little Mac's setup is up to date, I can just continue. You can delete any unwanted meshes such as expressions, and any parts of the model that will be added to the vanilla model, such as the legs and head. I would also recommend converting the faces from tris to quads in edit mode, merge by distance with M, and then subdivide the model so that it looks smoother. Similarly to step 2, you are going to model with either sculpt mode and messing around in pose mode. It's mostly just trial and error. Also, before rendering, you can hide the vanilla model by selecting the camera on the right of each object or folder. You can choose to either render in Eevee or Cycles. I have been using Cycles more recently, but most of my older mods use Eevee. Either way has their pros and cons. If you want to, you can edit the lighting to your liking. Once you're ready to render, you can either select the render option on the top left or just hit F12 on the keyboard. Once your render is ready, you can save it anywhere you need. Please do not leave it as it is, that's just lazy, you still need to do some post-processing. For render editing, I would download a PSD of the render. There's a PSD guide that I will link in the description where it has Photoshop files of every fighter. Once you get everything, open up your photo editing software and open up the PSD file. Import your render and resize it to fit the canvas or the vanilla render. I can't really offer instructions for editing, all I can say is do your best and trust the process. Here's a time-lapse of my render editing. I also had to render the hair separately to fill in the gap between the glove and the head. Once you are done editing, you can export the render. Now to do the UI. You can get the UI files from the CrossArk/Arc Explorer, should be in this directory seen on screen. Mostly, you just need a chara_0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. You will need to export them using Toolbox. To get them not to look darker than the original renders, you would need to select on View in the top middle of the image preview in Toolbox and select Preview Gamma Fix, Smash Ultimate. Once you open the UI files into GIMP, resize your render to closely match the vanilla render. A trick I like to do is to invert the colors of the render so that it is easier to align the render to the UI. Export all your edited UI files and replace them in Toolbox. Make sure that you select Gamma Fix for Smash Ultimate. Save once you're done and make sure you place your files in the right folder. Another thing I did was deleting the desktop.ini files that keep appearing in my folders for some reason. Anyway, once you did all that, you can prep the mod to go into your switch by following how the video organized the mod folder. You only really need to keep the edited files, you can delete the rest. Now on to the final step.
Okay, I'm back now. Open up your Switch SD card to your computer. From the root, go to this file directory and drag your mod into the mods folder. You are now done and you can test it. And look at that. It looked great. Probably, right? Yeah. Congratulations, you did it. If you see any issues with your mod, you could just go back and fix it, but otherwise you're good to go. You can release this mod on Gamer Now if you really wanted to.
Game! Little Mac
Full circle's
wins!
all yours, Mac.
I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you created your own mod, let me know, either in the comments section or tag me on Twitter with a few pictures of your own mod. Please like, subscribe to my channel and this channel, and share this video because why not, it could help someone. Anyways, this is my first time creating this type of content. Let me know if I should do more. Make sure to always credit artists and mod creators. Go watch or read Komi Can't Communicate, and that's all. Bye.